Hey Fit Pros, before we get to this new episode in the KIPS podcast, I want to quickly share about our newest course on KIPS, Social Media for Fitness Professionals. This course is all about the fundamentals. As a Fit Pro, you know how fundamental exercises are important for building a foundation within an exercise program, and that's what we're going to be doing in this course. Authored by me, Tyler Valencia, I go through the stats involving all the major social media platforms and then show you step by step how to do it. We do it all in this course, and one of the best parts is you can get your continuing education credits. Head to the link in the description to find out more. Let's get to the show. Welcome to episode 79 in the KIPS podcast. My name is Tyler Valencia, and I'm the president of KIPS and Time to Train Fitness. This episode, talking about social media strategy in 2023. Popular topic, and for good reason. Hopefully you already have some type of presence on social media and you're looking to build, and maybe you're in that boat. I just recently saw a post on a local community group about how their significant other needed help with social media, and I'll admit it, I looked at their social media just to take a peek. They mentioned they were in the health and fitness realm. So I wanted to take a look, and, with getting help or looking to grow your social media presence, it's sometimes first looking at where are you? Where are you with creating posts? What type of audience? What type of content? What can you do? What tools do you have? Because honestly, those are going to dictate how you move forward. If you want to go from zero all the way to professional pro overnight, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I don't know anybody that can do that, because there's just so much out there. There's so much to do, and growing and nurturing an audience, it takes time. That's one of the things that I'll admit that I've had to learn over the last maybe year and a half. Nurturing your audience takes consistency. It's not going to magically happen. You're not going to automatically just have clients flowing in because you created one post. And I think that that's sometimes where some business owners fall trapped to that. They think that, oh, well, I tried. I made one post and I posted it. That's it. You made one? Wow. It's really a constant grind, just like anything with a business. It takes dedication to it and staying up to date with it. So this episode, how did I come up with it? How did it come to fruition? Why am I recording it? And a piece of that is that recently I recorded a similar episode, and I really thought about it after, because there were items that I altered in my own businesses, Time to Train and also KIPS, that I didn't mention in that. And so coming back, recording another episode with KIPS to talk about these items, hopefully it helps our listeners, people that tune in for each new episode with creating their new content, and hopefully they understand that I'm going through similar things in terms of staying up to date, creating content that hopefully our audience enjoys and is useful to them. Now, the first thing I'm going to start with is talking about your audience, your clients, your potential clients. And I think that this is probably the best place to start, regardless of where you're at. Even if you're an experienced professional, you know how to use all the platforms, that you maybe need to reevaluate what you're doing, what type of content you're creating, because sometimes it might become stale. Sometimes it might not become what is the most efficient content for that specific platform. So I have a story for you that kind of just dictates this in terms of it's right in line with it. About 2 years ago, I was helping somebody with their social media. It was a friend, and with something that really just shocked me was that they had I don't know what the best way to call this. They had an acquaintance, a business acquaintance that was in a business group with them. Those are very popular, as always, that said, oh, I do social media. This is what you should do. You should make reels. Reels are real popular. And this friend of mine came back, told me, and I was just kind of shocked, because at the time, Facebook wasn't big on reels. Facebook wasn't really using them and showing them as much for their audience. I think at the time you could only really post them to your stories. And that's, of course, changed over the last year and a half, which goes with platforms. They evolve, they adapt. And this friend of mine, their audience was on Facebook. So growing and making reels for Instagram when their audience is not on there, it didn't make sense. And I told them that. I said, yeah, they're really popular. They're gaining traction. They're getting more popular. This is talking about reels, but your audience isn't on Instagram. And I just said that that's not going to really do you that good. And I just pointed to, look what happens when you do a post, you share about yourself on Facebook where your audience is. You get 5 times, 10 times as much reaction, engagement from those types of posts, because that's where your audience is. That's the demographics of your audience and where they are located. So the point of this being is find out where your clients are and where your potential clients are and make content specific to that platform. And I'm going to roll this into the next one here. And this is starting with my big tip here, because I'm going to talk about a platform that I no longer use for business. And the tip is to eliminate the platforms that you don't have a solid ROI, or your customers, they don't interact there. And for years, and I have to put a caveat on here, this podcast, not talking about politics, not talking about any of that type of content in relation to what we're talking about with health, wellness, businesses. But for a long time, talking about Twitter, I would say I never saw a big return, but I can say that I did get customers from KIPS. We did get customers from Twitter. So I kept it along for years and years. But recently, I eliminated creating content or posting on Twitter and on LinkedIn because the return wasn't there. And I just found myself spending hours scheduling posts and putting posts on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And they're very separate in terms of the audiences on there. Let me first start with LinkedIn. It's a professionals platform, but really, I'm not going to get customers for education from LinkedIn. So scheduling posts on there, it didn't make sense. Take this now to Twitter. The type of posts that I was putting on there was not specific to Twitter's platform, the type that gets content. It just looked like sales. And Twitter, it's a very different platform than the rest of them in terms of sharing stream of thought, putting witty one-liners on it, that kind of stuff. And so I wasn't taking the time to create that type of content, and therefore eliminating that, it saved time. It's also saved money because I paid money for a scheduling platform for specifically LinkedIn and Twitter. So my tip with eliminate the platforms that you don't have a solid ROI on or where your customers interact, I think it's very valid for this year because 1, you can save time, and 2, you can spend more time creating content for the platforms where you can get your return. So think about that. If you're in that same boat, do it because it could save you in so many areas. Your return on certain platforms can be huge compared to others. So trying to be on all of them might not be the best return for you for your time, money, investment in that area. And so all these kind of flow into each other here. And so one of these where I've actually seen a great return in terms, and I have to clarify this, return might be more followers, more engagement, not necessarily dollars. I think that that's one of the things that individuals that don't understand social media, they want to see an immediate dollar sign, but how can they track it? Or they didn't say, oh, I had that one post I was paying for social media in terms of somebody helping me out, and they did one post. I don't know if it equated to this sale over here. How are you tracking? Do you even have the analytics and the type of data put into it that you can track that? I think that that's one of the things where it doesn't make sense in terms of people will say that, but they don't even have the type of code injected to their social media, the type of process set up where they can track that type of flow. And so that's why I'm saying that a return might be more followers, it might be more engagement. And with Facebook, Instagram, placing more emphasis on those and how they've placed a higher emphasis on Reels, I have personally, with my businesses, seen a higher return with Reels on Facebook. A quick promo break here in the KIPS podcast. If you've been a fan of this podcast, you know that before end of each episode, you're going to hear a promotion for the Naboso Duo insoles. I've been using them for probably a year and a half, and I personally think they're game changers. I think everybody should get them, try them out, see what you think. And personally, I've talked about how I used to have foot pain just from sitting at a desk and then trying to be active, trying to go work out, and not really being able to fully maximize it. So I always try to throw it out there for individuals to just try them out, see what you think, utilize them in your day-to-day, and hopefully improve your overall activity level. That's the key right there, activity level. So check them out. There's a link in the description for the Naboso insoles. They have a variety of them to check out, different accessories. Check them all out, see what you think, and hopefully come back and let us know that they've really helped out with your activity level. Let's get back to the episode. And this is kind of flowing into the next one here. Now, as I mentioned, how you can cross post between them. If you are creating a reel for Instagram, you can download that to your device. You can copy the description, the caption, take that over to Facebook, your business page for it, and post it in there. And I've seen a great amount of higher engagement, higher views, higher clicks from doing that process. And that's something that I think has evolved over the last year. So with that being said, how do I now set something up? Like, how do I start utilizing that in my flow? Now, if you save time with eliminating the ones that you don't have a return on, you're not getting engagement on, now that time opens up. We have time opening up, and you can start looking at how do I create that type of content. And with it, start slow. Always start slow. This is the next tip here. Start slow, use templates, use Canva, and look at what other similar accounts are doing. If you are in that boat where you're like, man, I really want to start making reels, I don't know how to do it. They do take time. They take time cutting, trimming, music. Am I putting text over it, being creative, that type of stuff? It takes time to learn. But what is pretty useful is there's so many templates out there. There's templates that you can save for later, or you can just borrow somebody's idea and put your own content in it. That's one of the beauties of it. And when you do that, if you borrow somebody's idea, that you all of a sudden show up if somebody was to click that. Let's say that you were doing one of the creative ones out there that is trending, and you jump on that trending algorithm and you post it and you show up in that same algorithm, other people are going to find you. You're going to get more views, more followers, more engagement, all things that you want. And especially if your audience is watching and engaging with it, they're like, oh, wow, like they see that you can be creative, that your personality, all things that they like. That's what part of what makes Reels so popular and powerful, is that they show a creative side to you. You're showing more your personality than just a business post. And so with it though, I mean, there's plenty of ways to make Reels. And with starting slow, a tip that I'm gonna go back now to the beginning here. When I say start slow, if you are just starting with any of these platforms, any of them, Twitter or Instagram, Facebook, there's nothing wrong with just starting with what you're comfortable. Maybe that's just one image. Cool. You can learn so much from that. Treat it like a learning experience. Don't be discouraged if nobody likes it, nobody comments, you don't get any followers. You'll learn so much about that process, because why should you know? Why should you know how to make a post? Look at it that way, that just go through that process, posting one image, one video, whatever you feel comfortable with, and you'll learn, how do I do descriptions? How do I do hashtags? How do I do location tags? How do I tag people? How do I add topics, stuff along that nature? And you'll be surprised in terms of what you learn, so that next time you get better at it. With Canva, I've talked about Canva before. I think it's very powerful in terms of branding, creating content that hopefully stays on brand for you, colors, logos, all stuff like that. And so, of course, I highly recommend it. If you don't know what Canva is, I do have a tutorial on it on YouTube talking about Canva, using Canva, and why every health, wellness, fitness professional should be using it. And this goes to my last tip here with cross-posting. I already mentioned this before with how Facebook and Instagram place more emphasis on Reels. You can knock out 2 major platforms right there by using Reels. Think about that. 2 major platforms by making Reels and making them engaging, spending time on them. A lot of pieces go with that. I'm not being oblivious to that. A lot of pieces go with making Reels, putting the time into it, but you can cross-post where possible. Can you potentially put them on Twitter? Yeah, sure. I do want to stop here to talk quickly about Twitter because there are instructors, professionals in the health, strength, fitness instructor, wellness realm that do very well on Twitter. So don't take this podcast episode as, oh, he thinks Twitter isn't useful, blah, blah, blah. No, your audience might be there. I have personally seen strength coaches, sport performance coaches do very well on Twitter, and that just might be for that audience. That audience might do specifically well on there. For selling education, that's my realm. General fitness, not so much, but that specific audience that I just talked about, strength coaches, sport performance, I've seen them do very, very well. So don't get me wrong with saying that Twitter cannot be useful for individuals in our industry, in our realm. It just depends where your audience is. So let's summarize everything I've talked about in this episode. Cross-post where possible. Use that to your benefit in terms of what the platform that you are on and how it is taking content and showing it to customers. You might be able to save time in that. Start slow as usual. Start with what you're comfortable. Learn from it. Don't get tied up with, oh, I'm not getting followers, engagement, whatnot. Why should you automatically? If you just put one post out there, it's not like overnight you're going to have 1 million followers. Come on, be realistic. Start slow. Start with what you're comfortable with. Learn from it. Eliminate the platforms that you don't have a solid return on or where your customers are not looking at. If you are, I'm going to use another example here. If you're in the active aging population, is your audience on Instagram? Are they on Twitter? And if you're trying to hit all of them, maybe think about eliminating some of those. If your audience isn't on that platform, don't worry about it. Don't take the time to create content for those platforms if it's not where your audience is and you're not going to be able to see a return. And now finding where your customers are, that might take some time, take some research, plenty of resources out there to find out where your customers are. YouTube, the platforms that you're already on, you can go look at your analytics. All of them have analytics these days, professional dashboards that help you find these things out so that you can be better with your time that you're putting into your strategy in 2023. That's been this episode for the KIPS podcast. Make sure you check out the content we've already released this year. You'll notice that on the KIPS YouTube channel, there is the first live recorded episode on the KIPS podcast. Going to be trying to put out more of that nature. You could see what the guests look like, how it's recorded a little bit, and you might enjoy it that way. So subscribe to the KIPS YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing to this podcast, sharing it with fellow health and wellness and fitness professionals out there. And I will see you in the next one.